Hi, this is Kunal from TradingSim. Thanks for visiting the YouTube TradingSim.com channel. I wanted to do another market recap on a trade that we took on Monday, June 6th on CYCC, which is Cyclacels Pharmaceuticals. This was actually a tough trade, which is why I wanted to show it to you. It ended up working out at the end, but you know, there was one shakeout that got me, and I'm just going to walk you through it. So if I have the daily chart up here, and so kind of what you can see is if you look on the bigger picture, we had a massive breakout a couple days ago. I haven't started the simulation from June the 6th yet, which I'm about to start, but we had a major gap up. It's holding the gap. It's nothing bearish at this point, and so what we had here was another major gap higher. This stock took about 10 minutes to open. It wasn't instantaneous, and so as you can see, we're moving here at about a minute per second through the simulation. Eventually you're going to see a gap here. There you go. So it took about 20 minutes to open. Let me just stick the 5-minute chart up so we can see what's going on intraday. So this thing, you can look at the bid and ask right here. There's a 20-cent spread. We're just ripping higher. And it continues to go, and so you can see there's in some cases there's 3 to 5% spreads in the bid and ask. This is a very dangerous stock to be trading. The float is extremely low, but what I want to note here is we have right here we saw about 500,000 shares traded. That's a gigantic sum compared to what we saw prior to that, right? I mean, you're seeing in some cases no shares being traded. This is from yesterday, or prior trading day, which was Friday the 3rd. And so what we noticed here is there is a big spike in volume, and this is important because when we have these massive spikes in volume, they can end trends. They're not necessarily going to, but the red flag should go off that we've seen a massive volume spike. This is probably where people have unloaded their shares, and so in any case, this is a marker we're going to keep an eye on here, about 780. So what happened is we had a quick pullback off that 780. Everything's fairly constructive. We're holding the 5 EMA. And then we made another attempt up there, 827, right? We had another volume spike, about 400,000 shares this time. So again, there's no signal at this point in time, but we're trying to understand the character of the stock and what's going on here. And so we've seen just volume bursts out of nowhere, and so this bar up here at hitting 827 on the spike, and then we followed that up with a double top, if you want to call it, at about 825. And so if we put this on the 1 minute just to get a better view into this, right, we had this volume level here, we set up a base here, and then what we started to do was break down through the base. Again, I'm nowhere near short signal on this stock yet. It isn't looking terribly weak. It isn't looking terribly strong either at this point. It looks like it could be breaking down a little bit here. So let me put this back on the 5-minute, and let's just move this forward a little bit. And so I'm going to put this on a 5 minute per second speed, so that we can watch this thing move quicker. And what I'm gonna actually do is move the simulation forward bar by bar manually, so that we can keep an eye on this. So what I'm keeping an eye on personally is, I like to see these types of setups where we have this high. We have a high at 780. We had a major pullback, a dollar pullback here. I mean, you can see it hit 678 from 780. It's a big pullback. And then we ripped to new highs. And so at this point, we're squeezing some people above 780. All the way up to 827. And we double topped and we couldn't hold that level. And so we're all the way back down to around, $7 again. There's some underlying weakness up in this area. We can make that out of this price action. What I'm looking for when I'm day trading is I'm going to be looking for a break of this area, which is basically this volume bar here. 686-ish is an area. My first sign to see weakness is going to be below the 5 EMA, and so in the morning especially there's a lot of volatility, and sometimes if and again, this is based on instinct, this is artistic, this is not mechanical or something that you can calculate. This is just something you feel sometimes. And so what I was looking for was a break of the 9 EMA, and then which I was looking for eventually a break of this low here at 678. And so my idea was that we would eventually come back and at least retrace half of this move, which is right around 6 1/4. That's a very important area that we want to keep an eye on when trading this one. 50% retracements and Fibonacci are like magnets. 62% are also, in that zone is where stocks typically like to retrace back to. So we're going to, what I actually did was I took a short on the break of that 9 EMA. And I'm going to move this again a little bit slower. Right, it's holding there. Now, so right there, I was anticipating a break below this 678 area. This trade turned out to be a little bit more difficult for me. It held that level, and at this point, what I'm forced to assume is that this stock is trying to base. Maybe it wants to make a run back up to 6 or 765 to around 775 area. And so when we have this cluster of bars here, we have a push down to the 9, complete reversal of that 9, and then we broke above that bar, which was right around 725. I exited. So again, this is an extreme. We looked at the spreads. I mean, you can see them here. There's like 11-cent spreads. This is not a stock you want to try to dump a whole ton of shares into. This is you have to size your trade, according to the risk that's involved in that trade. And so, I mean, we're seeing, look at these. We're seeing $1 swings on a $6 or $7 stock within 5 or 10 minutes. It's not something you want to mess around, with huge volume on. In any case, I took this trade on a low. I think it was about 703. We took it on an anticipation of a breakdown. It didn't break. We covered it around 725 when it took that out. And so, again, you have to always exercise patience in the market. You don't want to be chasing anything. You want that setup to come to you. You want to enter into a trade with basically the lowest risk setup that you can find. And so you just don't want to get into this game of chasing stocks. It's just not a good recipe. So in any case, let's just move this forward a couple minutes at a time again. And again, it tried to do it, and This was a very difficult trade. Actually, 744, 742. You know, I luckily wasn't watching this trade at the time, but you know, when we double topped here, and then we took out this 692 low, you know, I theoretically would have gambled on another short. Well, I don't want to say gamble, but I would have taken another short in anticipation of a breakdown. You know, you could see that the 9 EMA is bended. At that point, it was looking like he was really going to break down. You know, it was a good thing I wasn't watching the stock at the time. But regardless, we did punch right back up to this level I was talking about, 675. Let's see what happens. Going back to the 9, again, we're penetrating the 9 EMA, and I think you get the idea what's going on here. We're setting up a major support level right here, right around 680-ish. That's where this stock wants to kind of hold. Yeah, 678, 680-ish. And so what we're going to look for is a weakening in the stock. And again, look at that. You know, 680 came down here, ripped higher to 711. I'm going to take this Fibonacci off. Right, we're going to keep a mental eye on this level right here, 50%. But again, 680 held the market in this. It just keeps fighting, right? So again, what some other traders are going to be watching is they're gonna say, oh well, we got a trend line. Sorry. We got a triangle forming. That's what's going to happen here, and so that's potentially the case. However, you know, one thing to note here is that when stocks continue to hammer against support, the more and more times that they do that, the higher probability is that they will break eventually. And so, you know, we're continuing to see a pattern of 1 high, 2 high, 3 high, 4 high, and they're all lower highs. So the odds of a break higher don't look that strong here, and I think this thing doesn't want to move off that 680 to 7 area. It's starting to look bearish, right? So this is interesting. We punched through this resistance, failed, and so now this is where I'm going to be looking heavily to take a short, right on a break of 680, and that's what we did. Right, and so at this point, I'm ready. I'm short at 680, and we have support down here at 6.25, as we discussed earlier. And so now, what I'm going to start doing is, if this stock is truly going to trend in my direction, I'm going to watch the 9 EMA very closely. I'm going to watch any repenetration of 680 to the upside, and you know, if that break above holds, then I would want to get out of my position. But let's just take a look and see what happens here. I mean, this thing very quickly tanked down to 635. Going back to that 9 EMA. Now, now see what's happening here is, if I don't see a break at this 632 level fairly quickly, I'm going to get out. And let's just put it on a 1-minute chart so that we can kind of look at what's going on here. Right, and so we saw a ton of volume coming down here. Again, volume spikes tend to end moves. You also notice I have an RSI 5 down here. Again, I'm not trading off this necessarily, but it does give me an indication if the market is extremely overbought or extremely oversold. And so, we saw here we got a RSI 5 reading of about 5 with volume expansion. So we want to be careful, especially about 5 to 7 cents above a pretty big support level. So if I don't see a break below this, I want to take at least half of it off. Right, it's messing around here. There, we penetrated below it. Now, so what's going to happen here? We want to be on alert for a juke move here. So 632, we hit 631. Any move above 648 is going to tell us to at least we're going to be out at least half the position. Right, so we would have been stopped out above 648 from a 680 short. So about 32 cents, about 5%. We're still riding the other half, and again, 680 is going to be your area to keep an eye on. So we had a quick spike up to about 689, and that level failed. It was instantaneous, momentary, based on these 15-20 cent spreads. Let's just move this 5 seconds, 5 minutes per second. At this point, you can see the volume is kind of falling out of this stock. You're starting to see anywhere between 0 and 5,000 shares being traded every minute. That's just not a good place to be. There's no liquidity in this stock, and so this is really not a great trade. I wanted to show you this example because this is something that you'll see throughout the trading day. These patterns will look great. They'll be extremely volatile, especially with these low float stocks. The low float stocks can work in your favor, and that's great. But especially stocks that have these wide spreads, you want to be very careful of. This was a bad trade. I shouldn't have taken it. I made a lot of money on it, but I shouldn't have taken the trade, and I regret doing it. And I regret doing it because I broke my discipline. And so, you might ask, well, you're making money, why are you upset? It's because if you don't have a strict rule set that you're following, if you don't have an idea of what kind of trader you are, you will be vulnerable to taking undue risks that will potentially erode your account value. And so I'm very protective of my mind. I really don't want to be pulled into things that don't meet my requirements. You got to be very picky. Some days you might not have a trade. It's very difficult for people who are used to having day jobs and making money every single day. I make $200,000 a year working at my job. That amounts to around $800 a day or whatever that comes out to. And you guys, are trained. I came from that same environment, so I know exactly what that feels like. You want to feel like you're making progress every single day. Sometimes a market, it's just not there. And you want to be very careful of over trading. It can really cut your profits down. So again, we preach volatility. You want to be trading volatile stocks, but you also got to be careful. You don't want to see stuff like this where the spreads are widening 5% between the bid and the ask. That's just a little bit ridiculous. And sometimes you just have to get out of a trade if things like this are happening where there's low volume, there's no shares being traded. I mean, it's very difficult to get out of stocks like this at a reasonable price. You end up giving the spread away. Right, this thing went lower into the close, and so if you were keeping an eye, one could have been out of this stock when it broke the 9 EMA here, especially because it was getting late in the day. If you held on and wanted to see if this big support line was penetrated, you were rewarded to the end, through the end of the day. Anyways, I hope this trade kind of helps a little bit. It's not an ideal trade, and that's kind of why I wanted to show it to you. I did get juked out once right here, and I could have potentially gotten juked out again right here. So this could have been 2 small losses that I would have taken, and eventually I would have covered that. I did cover that entire thing and then some, but this is just not a trade that I want to be in. So anyway, I hope that helps. I know it was a little bit long-winded, but if you have any questions, email us at admin@tradingsim.com, and feel free to take the TradingSim 7-day trial. I think this simulation tool is very helpful for any type of trader, whether you're a beginner or an advanced trader. It really allows you to simulate a market as if you were trading it live. I can go back to any day, even going back to 2014, and replay a market almost like a television DVR, right? We recorded every price movement for every single stock on the U.S. markets for every single day for over the last 2 years. It's a tremendous tool, tremendous power to the tool. We'd love for you to try it out. Just again, shoot us an email if you have any questions. admin@tradingsim.com, and best luck in trading. Thanks.